Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. I hope all of you are doing well, preparing well for the upcoming examination with your full gist and enthusiasm. This is a video session on monthly policy review for January 2024. Monthly policy review is an important vital document released by PRS Legislative Research. It is an independent think tank which is working for the legislative process, making the entire understanding of the bill more easy for you. Now, through this session, I'll give you a deep insight about the relevant news which was there for the month of January. We'll see the important bill which is specifically important for civil services examination and other state public service commission examination. So we'll see and understand the important news from the examination perspective. Let's get started and understand the news that was relevant for the month of January. So starting with the first, that is Prithvi Vigyan scheme. Now this particular news might be relevant for prelims examination as well, where I'll be giving you the precise information that will also help the part of completing the part of MCQ questions which is there in the examination, and even for the mains you can use this as a fodder point for the examples. Now, recently the Union Cabinet has come up with an umbrella scheme known as Prithvi Vigyan scheme. Now, this encapsulates some of the other schemes which is there. Actually, the five sum scheme has been encompasses with this particular scheme. I'll give you the details of all the scheme that is mentioned over there in the coming slides. Now, this relates to the climate research modeling, polar science, seismology, education and outreach. So it has a gamut of benefits for the part of understanding how the part of the Earth observatory and the other system will work. So we'll see the detail how this the Prithvi Vigyan is actually going to help in overall understanding of it. So what are the key features of this scheme? First, it encompasses the five sub-schemes. Which are that five sub-schemes which is there? The first is name is ACROSS, which stand for Atmosphere and Climate Resilience Model Observation and Services. See, the acronym become important for many one-day examination. If you're preparing for any one-day examination, specifically for banking, this might be relevant for you. OSMART, that is Ocean Services Modeling Application Resources and Technology. Then we have PACER, which is known as Polar Science and Cryosphere Research. SAGE, that is Seismology and the Geoscience. So what does the SAGE actually will be doing? It aims to strengthen the earthquake monitoring और अर्थ की जो रिसर्च सॉलिड कंपोनेंट्स हैं उसके बारे में अंडरस्टैंडिंग प्रोवाइड करें. Now reach out is something reach the research, education and training outreach. So these are the five important sub schemes that has encompasses the Prithvi schemes. Now what is the aim? Why it has been brought in? See, it is important for you to know the aim, the rationale behind any of the initiatives coming from the government of India. So it aims to enhance the long-term observations of the atmosphere. This is the first component. Then ocean and the liquid, the solid earth, the part of the solid earth which is there. So it will give a deep insight and the long observation in all three aspects. If you're specifically writing in mains examination, make sure you write all these three components because it has a long-term observation on all these three. But it also called for built a system where forecast weather and climate hazards will be taken into consideration, with the fact that it also aims to explore the high seas region, right? Development of the sustainable technology for harnessing the ocean resources. So you can see the variety of area. I mean, it has other area from oceans. If you see at the ocean, even for the part of atmosphere, all things are taken into consideration. The scheme will be implemented from 2021 to 26 with an overall budget allocations of 4,797. Now, this is information which you can even take into consideration, although I generally don't prefer to get into the data as such, but you can take this into consideration. Now, the other important news is the framework for regulatory organizations in the fintech. We have seen the part of the fintech industry has been booming in the country. So how it has actually come up to the government cognizance, and even government is looking for a self-regulatory organization that is known as SRO. So the Reserve Bank of India, the apex regulatory banking authority in the country, the Reserve Bank of India has issued a draft framework for the regulatory organization in the fintech sector. Now, fintech in India, if you look at the part of unicorns coming from the fintech, it has been a tremendous progress for a country like India. The fintech provide financial services that help to save time, even enhance the access and lower the cost. See, as the technology upgraded, the part of the technology industries is upgraded, it ultimately helped the user base and even come up with the state of art technologies. RBI noted that the self-regulations could even enable the fintech to adhere to the industry standard and best practices. Not only for India, we have the global level of practices which is ongoing in terms of the fintech industries. There are other developed countries like United States, the part of a country like Britain. They have done a tremendous work in terms of, right. Japan has also been doing some of the commendable work. So we can take the global best practices as well into considerations. Now, if you look at the data as such, what is the growth prospect for the fintech industry? So, India aims to reach the $1 trillion fintech market by 2025. So, this is the growth trend which is highlighted through this particular graph. These are the sector wise, the neobank, fintech, SaaS, with the part of insurance tech and the investment tech. You can accordingly take things into consideration. And even you can highlight this as an example that which sector has a maximum component. Definitely, it's a investment tech, right? Now, moving ahead, what are the key proposals that was proposed specifically by the Reserve Bank of India? Reserve Bank of India ने अपने draft guideline में किन किन बातों पे जिक्र किया है? They have actually called for the specific feature of SRO. Now, they have called that they must operate objectivity with the part of RBI underside. We have seen recently the Paytm payment bank was taken into consideration due to some of the malpractices and even not with the compliances part, right? So उस चीज का एक एग्जांपल आप रख सकते हैं यहाँ पे prioritizing the sustainable sector and development. Now it aims to establish the regulatory compliances if needed. Now this is for the SRO specifically. The other features that was proposed under the SRO, which include the comprehensive membership and agreement for the sector representation. This is the one component. The second is the independent from individual or the group influencer. Third, legitimate and dispute resolutions among the members and promoting of regulatory compliances. So apart from all the features like coming up with the overall the part of the surveillance under RBI, these things need to be adhered to the part of SROs, right? And apart from the key features of the SRO, that is a self-regulatory organization, you also need to know about the membership criteria. How the membership criteria, what are the eligibility that need to be fulfilled for an SRO? The SRO should have represent the sector with a membership across the entities of all size, stages and activities. This is the first and foremost criteria which has been brought in by the Reserve Bank of India under their guideline and supervisions. The membership would be voluntary, but the RBI would encourage the fintechs to become the member of recognized SROs. Now, this can be an important vital information for the prelims multiple choice question as well. Now, what are the functions? Definitely, functions are the foremost that you need to know about the SROs. The self-regulatory organizations should have an objective and consultative process to make rules and standard. Say, the name itself says for the self-regulatory organization, but the adherence will be there as per the rules and regulation mandated by the Reserve Bank of India. And it should set the industry's benchmark, the baseline technology standards. The SRO should deploy the surveillance measures to monitor the sector and even detect the highlight exceptions, right? And even the part of the things that they need to cater is they should establish a grievance redressal and dispute resolution framework to their members. See what happens in the fintech sector. Dispute is something which is something that has taken a toll, and even a proper dispute resolution is not given by many of the industries player. So RBI has ensured that they should have a proper grievance redressal and dispute resolution framework to ensure that all the members are adequately addressed with their problems, right? Now, moving ahead, guidelines for regulations of the coaching centers. There's some amendment and changes that has been brought in by the government of India. We'll see the detail to that. So the Ministry of Education has actually come up with a guideline that is called as guideline for regulating the coaching centers. And this is how do you define a coaching center? If you go by the definition, I quote that it is institutions that impact the part of the academic guidance to the students of 50 for a competitive examination or for any academic programs, right? The guideline outline the teaching and infrastructure standard. So it encompasses both of the things. First, it will call for teaching, and other it will call for infrastructure, and set the criteria for registration and the overall operations of a coaching centers. Now, the guidelines have been sent to the states for their consideration because education call for the part of things which also take into consideration where state have the proper stake on that. So the state consultation and consideration is also important in this particular bill. So what are the key features? First and foremost is the registration. जो भी coachings होंगे, they must be registered with the designated state government offices. So there will be a nodal office which will be there, which will be takes into considerations. Each branches which of the coaching industries or the coaching part of the organization will be there, consider as a separate entity and require individual registration. So there will be a manual individual registration which will be done. The registration certificate, we call it RC, that has to be set valid period determined by the authority, and this authority will be actually there from the state government, right? Renewal must be done with the 2 month prior of the expiration. अगर कोई renewal करनी है तो उसे 2 महीने पहले ही prior करने होंगे, schedule करने. Condition for registration, see all the coaching that they're operating with must meet the eligible criteria for the registration. First, they should hire the tutor who are the graduate and have no criminal convictions, right? They should not be involved in any kind of criminal activities. Not enrolling the student who have not passed class 10. Now this is again something very important. This has to be an important point for the prelims examination also. They can ask you, they can enroll any number of the student from any particular class, but there's a capping that the student must have passed class 10 examination. Avoid making misleading promises regarding their ranking. There have been instances where the industries are making false claims, specifically with regards to rank. So usko lekar ke jo consumer forum hai, if you look at the consumer forum, they have taken a complaint as well, right? Now during the registrations, the undertaking compliances and the part of confirming will be rules that must be submitted. So these are the things that has to be taken into consideration and the mandate conditions for the registration of a coaching. Now fees की अगर बात करें, candidate must have a fare fixed without the increases. जो भी courses होंगे candidate के लिए वो एक industries player को ध्यान में रख के होनी चाहिए, and it should be something which is affordable in nature. This, if a student leave in midway, the fees are to be refunded proportionally as per the rules which is set by the particular coaching as such. The information on fees, facilities, lectures will be freely provided to the prospect of the students, parents, and predominantly displayed on the premises. So it is, you need to promote a transparency. It is what that the government is actually calling for, right? If you look at the classes as such, coaching centers are required to provide the weekly off to the students, along with the leaves that is there for the popular festival season. I mean, in India, we have a lot of other festival season with different religious activities also ongoing. तो उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए leaves की भी proper provisions होनी चाहिए. The classes should be conducted with not more than 5 hours in a day, and it should not clash with it should not match with the part time. It should not impact the particular schools and colleges with the relevant hour. It should not impact the part of schooling and other activities also. Now, infrastructure is the last component which government has come up with the broad guideline. So the classes must be possessing a minimum space of 1 square meters per student per batch, and the premise should have a fully electrified and well ventilation. So these are some of the basics that you need to know. The facilities such as drinking water, first aid kit must be taken into consideration, and these are the basic minimum necessities, amenities that need to be there with the coaching centers. Now the other is other important news, guideline constituting the part of Center for Literacy. We'll see the detail to this. So Ministry of Education has come up with the guideline on center, the part of the State Center on Literacy and State Council Literacy and Training. The guideline is constituted by the Center for Literacy in each state and union territory. So there will be a specific part with the state government, with each state and UT will be coming up with the part of literacy centers. It is said that the goals for the adult educations will be there for the state and UTs, जो कि National Center for Literacy की formations करेंगे, focuses on the national curriculum for adult education. If you look at the National Education Policy 2020, which we have come up, there is a specifically mentions of the skilling of the part, where the education and literacy must be promoted to a larger extent by the both center and the state government. Key features की अगर बात करें, first composition, the State Center for Literacy will be established by the part of the State Council, and even for the education and research training that is known as SCRT. We have NCERT at the national level. At the same time, this will function as a SCRT in each state and union territories. ये जो SCLs होंगे, खास करके सेंटर फॉर लिटरेसी की अगर बात करें, उसके मेंबर्स के बारे में आपको जानना जरूरी है. These are the ex officio members, which are the members which will be there. First, the director of SCRT will be acting as a chairman. Professor faculty of the SCRT will in charge. Two faculties from SCRT and one members including the representations of the higher education institution and representing the local non-governmental organizations. Right. So these are the part of the compositions. नाउ करिकुलम की अगर बात करें, जो स्टेट सेंटर फॉर लिटरेसी होगी वो प्राइमरली रिस्पॉन्सिबल होगी फॉर द नेशनल करिकुलर फ्रेमवर्क फॉर द अडल्ट एजुकेशन. राइट, दिस विल बी स्पेसिफिकली फॉर द अडल्ट एजुकेशन एंड फॉर द अदर हायर एजुकेशन. जो फ्रेमवर्क है दैट विल आउटलाइन द न्यू इंडिया लिटरेसी प्रोग्राम, जो कि कुछ कुछ बेसिक्स एरिया पे काम करेंगे. नो दिस will be again the focus area. Now this will be the focus area which focuses on the foundational literacy and numeracy, the part of critical life skills, vocational skill and basic education. So this will be the foremost priority under the curriculum to be taken into consideration. The Center for the Literacy will also develop the training manuals for the teachers and volunteers, and even जो materials होंगे, study material, teaching material will be there, will be as per the module and according to the curriculum which is set by the part of the Center for Literacy. Now moving ahead with the draft India Stamp Bill 2023, some changes has been brought in. You need to understand this can be relevant for the prelims examination also. Ministry of Finance has released a India Stamp Bill for public comments. Actually, there will be, this has not yet been finalized. This is something which is a draft bill, right? So it replaces the Indian Stamp Act 1899, which was again a colonial law. The government actually looked forward to overcome and replace it. It provided for a levy stamp duty on instruments such as affidavits, bill of exchange, and boards. Now, this is the main context of the news. But before I proceed with the other details, I would like to tell you about the stamp which was also released for the Karpuri Thakur, who has also received the highest civilian award, Bharat Ratna. He was the 11th Chief Minister of Bihar, right? So this can be again important for many other examinations. So you can take this into consideration. Now, key features की अगर बात करें, the draft bill imposes a duty on exceeding the lease agreement and bonds, right? This is the first and the foremost key features. It mandate जो specific transitions होंगी for mining, lease renewals या फिर state interest transfer, the duty will be determined with the instrument market value. अगर बात करें the undervaluation of instruments की, ये instruments जो होंगी that will be considered for registry by the registering officers. District collectors जो होंगी that will determine the appropriate value. So definitely in a district collector is the most powerful officers. He is the one who is responsible for the revenue collection. So his advice will be taken into consideration and his prerogative will there for the part of undervaluation of the instrument. Appeals against the order of a collector can be made by the chief controlling revenue authorities. So there are the other grievances which is also set by the government, so that a chief controlling revenue authority will take into other considerations. Collections of duties for the private entities, अगर बात करें ड्राफ्ट बिल की, जो स्टॉक एक्सचेंज होंगे, डिपॉजिटरीज होंगे या फिर इवन द पार्ट ऑफ ऑथराइज्ड क्लियरिंग कॉर्पोरेशंस विल कलेक्ट द स्टैम्प ड्यूटी फॉर सिक्योरिटी एंड सेल पर्पसेस ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट. नाउ दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट. द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट will have a whole stake role in part of the duties that will be paid for the private entities by the private entities. They will deduct the facilitation charges before transferring it to the states, and the collections method will be decided by the central government. So these are the other demarcations of the powers that has been distributed between the center and the state government. Now exemptions की बात करें, the act exempt the sale and transfer of instrument from a stamp duties, और ये बिल extend करती है exemptions SEZ डेवलपर्स के, जो स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स के डेवलपर्स हैं, उनको exemptions देती है by the central government. However, it removed the stamp duty exemptions for the beneficial ownership of the transfer of the securities and depositor of a mutual fund unit as well, right? Except for the registered ownership transfer between the individual and depositors. So these are again the in-depth part. You can just have an overview of the understanding. Now, even it exempt the stamp duty on strategic sale of the disinvestment of the government properties and other the part of state and central government. Generally, PSUs की अगर बात करें, आपने देखा होगा recent में the public sector undertaking is undergoing the part of disinvestment strategy by the government of India. So the exemptions will be also provided here, right? Now, moving ahead, this is a last discussion of the initiative. So Draft amendment to the vehicle scrapping rules. Now, this is again important from the environmental perspective for the prelims examination. There can be here and there some question that will ask you about how the vehicle scrapping policies actually work in the country. So the Ministry of Road and Transport and Highway has released a draft amendment to the Central Motor Vehicle, that is registration and function of the vehicle scrapping facility 2021, और ये amend करती है Motor Vehicle Act 1988 को. The act provide for the registration of the motor vehicles, a rule provide करेंगी for scrapping of end to life of the vehicle. There are the pollutants that is there in the environment, so the government is looking forward to ensure there is a full-fledged scrapping facilities to a larger extent, to ensure that people are actually motivated and even go through the part of vehicle scrapping facilities. There will be some amount that will be set by the government. We'll see detail with that as well. So first and foremost, the key features include the part of obtaining the consent to establish how the part of the establishment for the scrap facility will be there. Under the rule, the vehicle scrapping facilities require the consent from the state government, the part of union territories for registering the authorities. The proposed amendment shift this responsibility to the state polluting control board. जो पहले स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के पास हुआ करती थी, अब स्टेट पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड्स जो होती हैं, SPCBs इसे कहते हैं, वो they will be taken into things into consideration for the establishment. Obtaining the consent to operate. So as per the rule, क्या क्या changes की गई जो पुरानी facilities थी, the facilities need to consent and operate for the UT of the pollution board within 6 months of starting the operations, right? Now this is there. Prior informations and intimation need to be there to the state pollution board, and the draft amendment require that the scrapping facilities must have at least 60 days before the commencement of the operation. Now it has reduced it to precisely 2 months. जहाँ पहले 6 month की requirement थी, उस requirement को कम करके अब 2 महीने कर दिए गए हैं. That is 60 days precisely. I'll not quote 2 months, so you better be precise and say 60 days. That is the changes that has been brought in. Now, the transfer of registrations की अगर बात करें under the 2021 rule, जो registration scrapping facility थी, वो non-transferable थी, right? Now, the draft amendment allow the transfer of registration. Now, this is again vital for prelims as well. Certificate of deposits की बात करें, the CDs that is there, the scrapping facilities issue the certificate of deposits to the vehicle's owner, acknowledging the ownership transfer and enabling the incentive to the new purchase. Because government ये कहती है अगर आपने scrapping किया है तो आपको उसके लिए incentive दी जाएगी, and apart from incentive, the scrapping value will also be provided to the individual. The certificate is not valid for 3 years. ये certificates जो दी जाएगी वो 3 years तक valid होंगी. With a draft amendment that is electronically tradable. However, the certificates of the government is owned by the vehicles incentive and not tradable electronically, right? तो कुछ ऐसे चीजें हैं जो imported vehicle lags है, incentives जो हैं that will be not tradable, but majority of them will be tradable with validity of up to 3 years. Now this is something which will be again important, providing the another motivations and even push for the part of scrapping, the part of scrapping in the countries. We have very less scrapping as such. लोग ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा उसे रीसेल करने में विश्वास करते हैं. Ultimately things goes on with the cycle and loops goes on. So this will definitely define the part of the scrapping industries in our country. So this was all about for this edition. Hope you like the content, you like the part of the discussions that we had. This is definitely going to help you and aid in the prelims, mains, and even it will contribute in the essay paper where you get the fodder point for the examination, right? So this was all about for the sessions. We'll meet in the next session. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for staying connected.